passionate to beat somebody. We're passionate to beat everybody.
My expectation is we go out and dominate and create a nightmare and make people never want to play you again.
If you are a fan of another team and your coach is not out there doing everything that Kirby Smart is doing right now, you are already losing. You feel however you want to feel about that.
Nowhere to run and nowhere to hide for 4 quarters. They got to see us in our house for 4 quarters. They got to look us in the eye for 4. This is about us and our family and our house. This is about us. This is our mentality. We ain't backing down. We ain't running. Set a tone, send a message. This is our house. Physical toughness wins in football now. And if you in this room, you got it. And if you come in here, you better believe in it. Because this physical toughness, it's what makes the difference. Elite focus. That's all I'm doing to the guy across from me. I'm fixing to whip his ass. Not in my box, not today. It's about us. It's about our family. We attack. You take that helmet and you strike them. And you strike them and you strike them. That's how you get respect. Physically, I will break them.
Fire everybody. Fire everybody. Right? Am I doing this right? Welcome back into this week's edition of the How About That HBTFDAWGSCAST. I'm going to shoot you straight, friends, because it's what I always do. It's what I said I would do. It's what I try to do every week. I try to offer a perspective that's a little bit different than what other people might have. But bottom line is, I believe you can trust me. I hope you can, that I'm going to tell you the honest truth about what I see. And that's what I'm going to do tonight. It's been a long week. It's been a long week for me personally. It's been a long week as a Georgia Bulldogs fan. It's been a long week for Dawg Nation as a whole. It's been a long week for Kirby Smart. I can tell. I had some scheduling issues this week. I didn't get to do my Kirby Smart Monday presser breakdown the way I usually do it. But I could tell, because even though I was trying to not watch it, because I was holding out hope that later in the day, maybe I could get to it, get it done. It just didn't work out. But I couldn't avoid the fact that the beat writers, the .coms, were out there putting up clips and stuff and quotes from the presser. And it's hard to miss it if you're in the Georgia, ecosphere of football coverage. So I saw it, and I saw some pictures of Kirby. And yeah, I heard the bit about Jake Pope and what happened with him. I heard the bit about Kirby Smart saying that Carson Beck is absolutely my quarterback. There is no doubt. I heard enough to be able to talk on a couple of those things. So let's get that out of the way first, since I didn't get to do the full video. First off, you could tell that loss did not sit well with Kirby Smart. You could tell. All you had to do was look at the man on Monday. It looked like he hadn't slept in 48 hours. There was a lot of buzz on the internet and in the college football world about the Syracuse head coach, former Georgia Bulldog assistant, Fran Brown, who said, you don't get to wash if you lose. Washing is for winners. And essentially what he was saying was, when he goes home and his team loses, all he can think about is getting to work, doing the next thing to make it right. Because he knows that in that week, that 1-game season, he failed. His team failed. Of course, you have to think that Kirby Smart views it the same way. He knows. He knows. The question is, can he do anything about it? I think that's what we all want to know. Because even though I hadn't been able to do the things I normally do this week to get ready for this show, to get ready to lead up to this next game, I'm even hearing it. The Dogs are in a downward spiral, probably can't be recovered, aren't going to make the college football playoff, which I hadn't even seen the rankings until like 2 hours ago. So I'm behind on all the fuss and muddle about that. But I know that it didn't go well. And I don't mean because of where the Dogs are ranked, but because of how they got there. It doesn't make any sense. We'll get to that in a minute. It's been a long week, friends. And here's the thing. You can tell by looking at Kirby that he hadn't slept much. You could tell that it was eating him. You could tell that it was on his very last nerve. And it was all he could think about, the way they performed against Ole Miss last Saturday. So, do I believe that Kirby Smart's working hard? Yeah, I do. Do I worry about his health? Yeah, I do. Because it can become all-consuming. But as a football fan, I want him to be working hard. And I think that he will. I know that I believe that he is. So, That was the first part. The second part, another way you could tell that he hadn't slept much, you could tell that it was on his last nerve, was the way he responded to the Jake Pope thing, right? Say what you will about the video and what it showed and the young man and how he handled it himself after the fact. And Kirby knew it, because when he came to the podium on Tuesday, he's like, that was my bad. I apologize. I should never have said that about the young man. Do I like what Jake Pope did? Nope. Do I understand it? Yeah. Do I believe that Kirby Smart meant every word he said when he was like, I shouldn't have done that? Yeah. How do I know that? Because A, I'm a human. B, I'm a father of 2 young children. And I know what it's like when you haven't slept, especially when you haven't slept of days on end. And try as we might, and Lord knows I try, to never snap at my children, to never raise my voice, to never get after them in a way that I can't look them in the eye and be proud of. It happens. I think, honestly, that's what happened to Kirby Smart when he was asked that question at the podium on Monday. I'm not making excuses for it. I'm just telling you, I can understand it. The thing I've always said about Kirby at the podium is that he is telling you the truth. When you are threadbare, worn thin, that truth has a lot more jagged edges on it than maybe it does, when you've been able to sleep on it a little bit and pull your thoughts together a little bit better. So that's my thoughts on Kirby's presser. I didn't even get to see the one from Tuesday. I think the headline coming out of Tuesday was that practice was good. That's a good thing. And that leadership inside the building among the players is where it needs to be. So that brings me back to what I was saying earlier. Kirby knows that that's not good enough. He knows that Dawg Nation, for the most part, especially the people who don't follow it maybe as closely as we do, they're freaking out. The national media, freaking out. What is Georgia's problem? Y'all know that's not a simple answer. It never is. And I'm going to apologize in advance because much like Kirby Smart, like I said, this has been a long week for me. So tonight might come off a little scattershot, but I do want to touch on some things and walk us through what I think we're seeing, or at least how I see it. So as I've told you week after week, Georgia's already in the college football playoff. And if you didn't believe me before, you better believe me now, right? I know you've heard it this week. This is an elimination game for the Georgia Bulldogs. And if they do not win, it's over. It's over. What did Kirby Smart say? Welcome to the SEC, baby. That's how life goes. Well, the Dogs are up against it. There's no two ways around it. And to be frankly honest, I don't want to get ahead of myself. I'll get there. The thing about Georgia is, to this point, they have not looked the way I wanted them to look, the way I expected them to look. And there are a lot of things that have to be cleaned up. But the question is, can Georgia actually clean it up? They come in currently ranked 12th in this CFP ranking. Now, there is an awful lot being said about that, about schedule strength, about who have you played, who have you beaten, all that kind of stuff. And I'm with you. None of that makes any sense to me, but I'm not going to get on here and talk to you about it like I'm fully versed in it because I haven't seen the coverage. I haven't read all of the excuses. But when I look and see a Penn State up there where they are versus a Georgia where they are, right? I mean, it doesn't take a brain surgeon to figure out what's going on there. Now, the reason I don't freak out too bad about it is because there are still football games to play, and if Georgia handles their business, especially this Saturday, they are in the college football playoff. Point blank, period. That's the end of the discussion. But as my buddy Roddy Nabulsi of UGAsports.com says, and rightly points out, don't ever lose, Georgia. In 2023, you went undefeated in the regular season and only lost in an unnecessary conference title game. The punishment? Out of the playoffs. First time that's ever happened. Then in 2024, playing the nation's toughest schedule, you lost 2 top 10 teams on the road. You lost those games. You beat number 3 on the road, impressively. The punishment? Out of the playoffs. That's why we do these things, these rankings every week. Things change. We know that. That allows me to take a deep breath. That allows me to understand that there's still more football to be played here. And like I said, I'm not going to dive in and just try to kill the CFP committee here. I just don't feel like I have enough information to make that argument. And the fact that Georgia is currently sitting outside the playoff, yeah, it makes for great headlines. And yes, there's plenty to look at the way they got there. I know this much without even knowing everything, and know that it's screwed up and it's messed up, and that they do not value the things that they said they were going to value, which was strength of schedule. But all that stuff is down the line. That's down the line because Georgia, as I've been saying for weeks, are already in the college football playoff. They have to win. They needed to win last week to ensure an easy route. If they had won last Saturday, you could already say Georgia's in the playoffs. They didn't win. Now they have to win against Tennessee. And if they do, Georgia's in the playoffs. That's the end of that discussion. Seeding, it is what it is. And if you've played the way Georgia has played most of this season, I think that's good enough. Get in the dance. Keep your fingers crossed that all the things that have been hexes on your season so far get a little bit better. Which brings me back to my point. Can Kirby Smart fix it? Well, I think we have to take stock of who and what the Dogs are right now. I said last week that if Georgia were going to win out, there were 4 things they had to do. They had to win the coaching matchup every week. Because, for the most part, Dawg Nation believes in Kirby Smart. Kirby Smart believes in his coaching staff. When you look at them, whatever their strong suits are, whether it's recruiting or position coaching, teaching, whatever it is, he put together a staff that he feels really good about. And in Kirby, we trust. That's what we say. And I said Georgia has to win the coaching battle. Saturday happened. Kirby steps to the podium after the fact. And what does he say? We were out-coached, out-physical. Those are 2 things that you don't expect from a Georgia Bulldogs football team. So did they do it? Nope. What else did I say? They have to play clean. Think about the game. Did that happen? And I wasn't talking about just turnovers. I was talking about penalties. I was talking about turnovers as well. Did they play clean? No. Yes, Carson Beck had an interception. Was it his fault? No. But the running backs put the ball on the ground. So they didn't play clean. They didn't win the coaching battle. I said they had to run the football. Georgia ran for 1.9 yards per carry on Saturday against Ole Miss. Kirby told us it was going to be hard to run the ball. Problem with that, though, is it's been hard to run the ball all year. Don't worry, we're getting there. It speaks to a bigger issue, which is why I keep saying, can Georgia fix it? I don't know. I've seen a few voices out there in the wilderness this week that have said, Georgia, can they fix it? Are they going to change? And I've seen a few of you say, I don't believe they can. I'm in the boat with you. We're going to talk about it a little bit more, but I'm in the boat with you. What was the 4th thing? I said they had to play great defense. Did they play good defense against Ole Miss? Yeah, they played good. They played good. But it's not what they were going to have the rest of the way to win out. Couple that with the fact that, give Lane Kiffin credit, they had been studying that game for a year, scheming it up, and I hate the phrase, but they were in their bag against Georgia. They got their best guys, the best guys they had available. They got them into good matchups, or they schemed them open completely. And they took advantage of it. Jackson Dart made the plays, and there you go. So Georgia played good. They held them to field goals when I thought they were going to give up touchdowns. But they didn't play great. And the Dogs were going to have to play great the rest of the way to win out. You see, I'm saying there's a whole lot of pressure on that defense here. And that brings me back around to that other part I kind of skipped over a couple of different times here. So, Georgia's not going to win out because they didn't do any of the 4 things I said they needed to do. Pretty straightforward. So I feel pretty good now looking back at last week about what I said they need to do. They didn't do them. They lost. But to that thing that I've been sort of skipping over. Through 9 games, the cold hard reality is you are who you are. Whatever that is. You are a world beater. You are an underachiever. You are a scrappy football team, right? But none of those things apply to Georgia right now. Not entirely. And for me, it comes down to one thing more than any other. But before I name what that thing is, we have to sort of look at everything else. So, Georgia is not an explosive offense right now. They simply aren't. They haven't been all year. If you look at what Georgia is through 9 games, you would have to say at this point that the times we saw Georgia look really, really good, those are the times that are the rarity. That's the outlier. That's the anomaly. What we have seen more often than not is an offense that couldn't get out of its own way, that was inconsistent, that sputtered, that couldn't run the football well, and a defense that was pretty damn good. They can be better, but they've been pretty good. They have the potential to be elite. And you say, well, why aren't they elite all the time? You can pack run game and defense and take it on the road with you. Well, there's a reason for that. Comes right back to that offense. Because when your defense is on the field, no matter how good they are, for extended periods of time over the course of the game, you are going to get tired, especially in this world where quality depth for everyone is not what we are used to, especially at Georgia. It's going to show up. And when the offense is not staying on the field on third down, sustaining drives, when the offense is not being explosive and putting points on the board, and you have to be explosive in today's college football. I sat in this chair and said, I expect to see that from ETN. Why? In the run game, or Frazier. Why did I say that? Because I was expecting an offensive line that was returning at least 4 preseason All-American players to perform better. Now, about that offensive line, it's been in and out. It has been a turnstile of number of players that are playing there, out of position, not just on game days, but through the week, because of injuries, because of other things. What's the one thing everybody says about an offensive line? They have to gel. That has not happened for Georgia. Has not happened. They cannot be explosive. Some people want to point to the play calling and Mike Bobo. I'm going to point your attention right back to where I just was at the offensive line. To be explosive, you have to allow routes to develop down the field. As we saw Saturday against Mississippi, that can't happen. There was no world where Georgia was going to be able to hit the ball down the field to capitalize on one of these several missed opportunities that were on the field to be had for explosive plays, probably touchdowns. Carson had no shot. Now, am I absolving Carson Beck here? Absolutely not. He has been inconsistent at best, and he is not doing his offensive line any favors. When you run the majority of your offense out of the gun, right? And then you take the ball and drop another 10 yards in your pass drop. What does that do? How does that impact your offensive line? I'm getting further away from them as a quarterback. That's good, right? No. Because what you're doing, once you take a shotgun snap and then drop another 10 yards, is give a speed rusher off the edge a clear lane to run the loop around your offensive tackles and get to the quarterback. If you're going to take the snap in the gun, then you get a hop, maybe. There's no reason to go backwards. You're already in the shotgun. You step up in the pocket, you climb the pocket, you put your eyes down the field, and you deliver the football. That's the point of being in the gun. That gives your tackles the opportunity to run their rushers beyond the quarterback, especially if your quarterback climbs in the pocket. Carson's not helping them. By bailing backwards, he's making it easier to run right into a sack. And while we're on the the topic of pocket positioning for Carson Beck, all season and again on Saturday, there were opportunities for plays to be made down the field when the offensive line did do a good job in pass pro. And Carson runs out of the pocket, puts himself on the move, destabilizing his throwing platform, and turns what could have been a touchdown play into a nice gain. So yes, he made a throw, they made a catch, it was a nice gain, could have been a touchdown. Why are you running out of the pocket when there's no pass rush? Well, let's bounce the ball back the other way. Because when he's in the pocket, he's feeling pressure because his offensive line is not performing the way it's supposed to perform all season. Why have there been no explosive plays in the pass game or let me say it this way, more often? Well, it's everything I just said about the offensive line and Carson Beck. But it's also that, frankly, the wide receivers just haven't been winning. When you get one-on-one, that's what it is, one-on-one, and you got to win. And this group of wide receivers have not done it consistently. There's not a whole lot more to say right there. Because how many times have I sat right here and watched Carson Beck make an NFL-level throw, stick the ball on the numbers of the wide receiver, and one of two things happen. Either they drop it. By the way, Georgia leads the nation in dropped passes. Or they make a catch because Carson put it right on them in a small window, but the guy's right on their hip and it's an immediate tackle. So you don't get that yards after catch. That's where your explosive plays come from. Now, occasionally, Mike Bobo has done a good job of scheming guys so open that they have been able to have good plays, big plays. Well, you say, why don't you do that all the time then? Because if you can't run the football consistently, they don't have to bring a safety down closer to the line of scrimmage. Now they can drop that guy back. You can't get behind them, and you can't win over the middle in one-on-one coverage. It's frustrating. If you think you're frustrated, and I know I am, imagine how Kirby, Mike Bobo, Carson Beck, the whole unit, imagine how they feel. Because you can see it. You can't always see it on the game copy, but if you see the All-22, you can see it. You don't even have to know ball because it's so obvious. It's just that most folks don't get to see that. So the offensive line is a problem. We're going to start right there. I'm going to start right there. Why has ETN not busted more runs? Because that offensive line has not gelled. It's been a turnstile, a revolving door of players, by design or not. And frankly, I don't see the nastiness to have those guys drop their head and move another man. 9 games into the season, the things we saw happen against Ole Miss should not be happening. And if they are, injuries or not, you have to legitimately look at the coaching. Now, I don't profess to be an offensive line coach. I've been a defensive guy. I know defensive line. So I know a little about O-line, but I don't profess to be that guy. But I know what it looks like when one man decides he's going to move another man. I know what it looks like when I see Vanderbilt do it, when I see Alabama do it. You know what it looks like too. And more often than not this year, you have not seen that from Georgia. Missed assignments. One thing after another. A lack of physicality. It's a problem. The offensive line is a major problem for Georgia this year. And as far as I'm concerned, it is at the root of everything that Georgia is having issues with on the offensive side of the ball. There are other problems. Carson Beck has not been great. The wide receivers have not been winning. But for me, the offensive line is an issue. And at this point in the season, 9 games in, the question is, can you fix it? Can you change your stripes about who you are? The answer is no. Georgia is not an explosive offense right now. They will not be an explosive offense the rest of this season, not consistently, not the way you see other teams do it around the country. They cannot do it. Now, like I said, you can execute better. You can somehow get pissed off enough to decide you're going to put a little steel in your spine and move another human. Maybe they get a little bit more healthy. You get a more consistent group on the field at the same time. All of those things would help. And then the coach, maybe he schemes up some stuff to get some guys open. And when he has the opportunity, maybe the quarterback makes a good decision, remembers his basic quarterback training about working inside the pocket. All of those things, they could all come together. You could still be successful on offense. I'm not saying you cannot win. I'm saying Georgia is not an explosive offense, and they're not going to be. Not the way we're used to it. From day one, I've talked about the fact that if you're going to win in the college football playoff, you have to be able to score at least 30 points. Like, you have to walk out there knowing, all right, we're going to get to 30, 35. Can our defense keep the other guys around that number or less? That's how you win in the college football playoff in 2024. Right now, that is looking like the ceiling for this Georgia team consistently. Through 9 games, that's what we've seen. They're around 30 points a game. So they need that defense to be outstanding if they're going to win. Can they win? Yes. Are they going to hang 40, 50 on teams, other top tier college football playoff level teams consistently? No, they are not. This and more is why back in the summer, if you follow me on the other platforms, you saw a video of me where I'm out there telling you Georgia's not going to win the national championship. 12-team playoff or not. I said it. It's on the internet. The internet is forever. You can go find it. I said they can win it, but I don't expect them to. That's the way I came into the season. And then I predicted Georgia to go 11-1. Well, clearly that's off the table. We've already laid out why. And the failures to do the things that they need to do to get that done, to have made that happen. They didn't do it. So here we are. 2 losses, playing for their college football lives this Saturday in Athens. Georgia can win. They can win it all. They can win the remaining games of this regular season. But it is going to be hard, and they are going to have to earn every last victory. Every yard in every game that earns every point and every victory is going to be a hard-fought battle for this Georgia Bulldogs team. Now, here's the problem. We know they can be explosive, but we also know why they haven't been. What do they got in front of them? This huge game Saturday is against the Tennessee Vols. Tennessee comes to town. They're ranked pretty high in the current CFP standings. I think it's maybe number 7 is where they are right now. So if Georgia goes out there and handles their business against Tennessee, a team that they have a nice winning streak over right now, a team that they have beaten by an average of like 28, 30 points over the last 6 years, 7 years, whatever it is, the duration of this winning streak. If they go do that, if they show up and play the way Georgia should play at home, then the CFP stuff's going to take care of itself, and they're going to get in. And then it comes back to the question of, can they get healthy? Can they improve on all the things they have to do to win the thing? And then you get back into matchups. Styles make fights. You've heard all this before, but it all starts with Tennessee. It all starts with Tennessee. But you've still got Carson Beck out there. And you're like, when is the week that he's going to get better? When's it going to click into place? And it's like I just said, when you think about everything that's happening around him, when you think about the way his offensive line is performing, when you think about the way that the running game, through injury or whatever, has not produced the way they thought it would. When you think about why he can't hit an open receiver or whatever, think about how sticky those wide receivers have been out there, how many balls they've dropped. Georgia has a lot of offensive woes, and I've already laid them out for you. I probably should have had the visual slide that you see now on the screen when I was going through all that kind of stuff, because it just, there's only so much you can do. And he is at fault for some of it. But there are bigger issues here, and there are plays to be had. If he gets just a little bit of help from the offensive line on a couple of those plays, you're looking at touchdowns. But why didn't he? Well, that brings you back to home field advantage and all of those sorts of things. And that's the thing about this Saturday. Home field advantage is going to matter. The problem with this game coming up on Saturday is that if you look at it from a treetop view, Ole Miss looks a lot like Tennessee. No, they don't run the same system, but they can hurt you in the pass game. The thing that makes Tennessee really dangerous is the fact that they can run the ball really well. And they're, as to use Kirby's phrase, stubborn about it, which means they're not going to give up on it. And you got to stand in there play after play as a defense and shut that run game down. And if you do that, then you're back to the same old Georgia defense that we're used to. You shut down that run game, you challenge them to make plays down the field, and then you take your chances. It's deep ball roulette, right? Shot roulette is what I like to call it, because they're going to take their chances. They're going to put those corners on the islands out there, and they're going to try to pressure the quarterback. They're going to stop the run game and say, we can beat you more often than you can beat us. And here's the thing about Tennessee is earlier this year, especially after I watched them play Oklahoma, I started to go, yes, I really, really like the Dogs' chances to handle Tennessee when we get there. In the meantime, I've watched this offense continue to not be healthy, make mistakes that you shouldn't expect to see from a team that's as veteran as this one is, to not be able to run the football, and to not be as explosive as we all hoped they could be this season. That's the thing. Now, when I look at this game, do I think Georgia has a chance to win it? Yeah. Do I feel as good as I felt about it a few weeks back? I can't say that I do. The big question is whether or not this cat here, Nico Iamaleava, is going to play. I don't know if he is or not. I haven't had time to look at my Dogs the way I want to. I sure as heck hadn't had time to go look at Tennessee the way I want to yet. But I hear he might be injured and he might not play. That's going to matter. Dylan Sampson's the thing I'm way more considered and concerned about here. Because like I said, Tennessee can run the football. This guy has got something like 20 touchdowns rushing this year. That's insane, especially in the SEC. If Tennessee's offense does anything, it's because of the run game, and they've got the cat right here that can flat do it. So you want to know how this game's going to go. There's a couple of things you can look at pretty early. How's Georgia handling the run game? And then flip it around. How is Tennessee's defense, which looks very, very much like Ole Miss's defense, and the way they can get after you? How are they getting after Carson Beck early? And can they do it with 4? Or do they have to bring extra pressure? Those two things are going to tell you how this game's going to go pretty early. You're going to know. Which brings me back to home field advantage. That's the thing that Georgia has going for them this week, and it is a big deal. All you have to do, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but you can look them up. Georgia has been really, really good at home for a long time now. Long time. And all you have to do is think back to the 2021 game against Tennessee, or 2022, game against Tennessee in Athens, to see the impact that a crowd can have. Or think back to the 2021 game against Arkansas and see the impact that a crowd can have on the game. I don't know what Mississippi's normal home crowds are like. I would say that they're probably not the kind that you would point to and say, that is an incredible home field advantage. But the bottom line is, in the SEC, when you have a fan base that's all lathered up and has a reason to be angry and loud, then that's a tough place to play. And it mattered against Georgia on Saturday. In the second half, as Georgia got into the position where they were going to have to throw the football, those defensive ends and all that speed had that much of a jump, thanks to the home field advantage, that much better get off, and allowed them to get after Carson Beck down the stretch, further making his life difficult about those shots that he could have done down the field. You're like, an average fan would look at it and go, that dude was wide open. Carson Beck's awful. No, that dude might have been wide open. Problem is, Carson had no chance to see him. Why? Because he had somebody draped all over him because his tackles couldn't get a hand on the speed rushers. Why? Are the tackles that bad? Well, they're not great. They haven't been great. Now, maybe Green's dealing with a little bit of an injury. That seems to be the word coming out of camp this week. We don't know who the other guys are. Maybe they're inexperienced. They're playing through some things, whatever it is, but they haven't been great. Carson's not helping them with that drop that we talked about earlier. He's not climbing the pocket. And you end up with what you got. 5 sacks and a loss. It's not easy to look at. It's not easy to watch. And it's not easy to swallow if you're Kirby Smart and the offensive line at the University of Georgia. Because that is the antithesis of everything that you are supposed to be about. I'm not calling into question that that's what the program is, that that's what the program wants to be, that that is what they have been. But right now, that's not what they are. So being at home this week is a big deal because now Georgia fans, Dawg Nation, get to turn that around on Nico or whoever in the world it is that's taking snaps for them Saturday and put a little pressure on them. You get to sort of, I'm sure you're probably familiar with the tush push or the bush push or whatever you want to call it at the goal line, where the quarterback takes the snap and lunges forward on the sneak and the guys behind him push him to get the yardage. This week, if you're a Georgia Bulldogs fan, you get to do that, but for the defense. You get to do that. If you're in the stadium, you get to sort of give Jalen Walker and Gabe Harris and Michael Williams, Damon Wilson, you get to sort of stand behind those dudes, make all kinds of noise, and when that ball snapped, you get to sort of give them a shove, a boost, a jetpack bonus with an extra half second of get off in the pass rush game. If Georgia can manage to play the run game well enough to put them in 3rd and long into known passing downs. That's how this Dawg Nation crowd can impact the game on Saturday. Make it hard to hear, get them behind the sticks with a false start penalty here or there. And then kick those pass rushers in the pants as they get off on the corner to get after whoever's playing quarterback for them. You can impact the game directly this week, just like Ole Miss did. And I know full well that Georgia's fan base inside Sanford Stadium is better than Ole Miss's fan base inside Vaught Hemingway, or whatever the name of their stadium is. I think that's right. I know you are. Show up and do it. All I hear in the offseason, because on this channel, we talk about Georgia Bulldogs football 365. I'm doing podcasts in the dead of winter, the aphelion of the college football season, late February, the farthest you can get away from college football. And all I hear from people is, oh, I love the Dogs. Can't wait to be in the stadium. I live for Georgia football. It's all I care about. Great. You get 6 opportunities every year to be in Sanford Stadium and put that on display for the world to see. So there's zero excuse when the time comes that you can impact the game for you to then not show up and do everything you talk about all year. You can sit with that if you want to. Let that marinate and see how you feel about the Georgia fan base and how they perform. So, is that going to win the game outright for Georgia on Saturday? No. Can it impact the game and have an impact on Tennessee? Maybe shift the outcome a little bit? Yeah, it can. I hope the Dawg Nation shows up and plays that well. Because Georgia's got their work cut out for them. Like I said, this Tennessee team is a good football team. Josh Heupel's best. Is it good enough to overcome what they've been against Georgia in past years? I still believe that, I don't know about the number this week for the game. It looks a little big to me. If I were a betting man, and I'm not, but if I were, I would probably take Tennessee in the points because that number looks too big. But can Georgia show up, control the game enough to win it? Yes, they can. Everything that Georgia wants is in front of them. Kirby Smart said it in the locker room after last week's game. Everything's in front of us, and we are going to work. Because that's what we do at Georgia. We work. I take him at his word. I saw him on Monday, and it sure looked like he had been putting in the work. We've seen this team answer the bell all season up until this game on Saturday. Ole Miss had been planning for that game for a year. So schematically, they had it sorted. And they had done enough to their roster to put a whipping on Georgia. And Dog fans are not used to that. Georgia is not used to that. Being on the road probably had an impact. I said before the season that if the Dogs were going to lose one, it was going to be the Ole Miss game. Why? I just felt like they'd be worn down because of the schedule and what they had to do up to that point. So do I think it impacted the game in some way? Yeah, absolutely I do. But that's done. You're back home. Everything is on the line. It is time for the Georgia Bulldogs to rise to the occasion yet again. I don't know if Kirby Smart can fix what's wrong with this team right now. There is plenty of blame to go around. They are not going to be a team all of a sudden that they haven't been all year. You're not going to see Carson Beck throw for 400 yards, have a wide receiver go for 125, have a running back go for 150. You're not going to see it. That doesn't mean Georgia can't win. Georgia has to play clean. The coaching staff has to get the plan in place. The players have to execute it. They have to be able to run the ball at least a little bit. And that defense has to play lights out. And if Georgia does that, they can win this game probably on the lower end of the scoreboard. But they can get it done. And if they win this game, they are in the college football playoff. There is still a dangerous game down the road against Georgia Tech because who knows what you can make of them right now. But Georgia could win out, get into the playoff, and take their shot. There are things that are on the table for Georgia that can still come together to help them. They can get healthier, and that will matter. But everything that Georgia gets from this point forward, they are going to earn, and it is going to be difficult. But then again, that's why we love football as fans. Do you really want your team to stomp everybody by 30, 40 points every week? I understand those games are fun. I understand they're low stress. But if you really love a good game, I think that's what Georgia's going to have to show you the rest of the way if they're going to win this thing, or if they're going to, or however far they go. It's going to be good games. It's going to have to be. It's going to have to be. Because this is not a world beater team. This is not an explosive team. But it is a team, yes, I'm still going to say it, that's good enough to win the national championship. It just isn't going to be pretty. I'll tell you what's pretty every week. And that's the fact that I get to tell you wonderful people about the fact that we have a podcast. That's what this is. This is the audio or the video version of that podcast. But the audio version exists too. And even if you don't like to just listen to it on audio, if you follow us here on this channel, if you subscribe to this channel, it would be a huge favor to me if you would head over to the audio platforms and just leave us a rating, maybe a review. Let everybody know. Give us a follow. Just let them know that we exist. We have a good time doing this for you, and I hope that you guys have a good time listening, and I appreciate you being here. But I would consider that a personal favor if you would do that for me. Here on YouTube, we're still on the grind, trying to make our way to 10,000. I hope we get there sooner rather than later. So do me a favor, make sure that you're subscribed to the channel. It costs you nothing. Hit that alert bell so you don't miss when I put out new content, because it comes anytime, all the time, that I have time to make it happen for you. I try to be on a schedule, but sometimes we get off schedule like this week, and the alerts let you know when we have something new. While you're here, if you really are a supporter of this channel, I appreciate it and I thank you. But we also have a newsletter. Don't worry, it's rare that I'm going to send one out. But if you want to stay in the know and know about everything first, this is the way to do it. Sign up for the newsletter. It's in the description here on YouTube down below. Costs nothing. You won't hear from me unless there's some reason to. And don't forget, to come on back tomorrow for that SEC Powers Hour. We're going to be in here with Joe. We're going to pick all the games for you like we always do. And I have to say a special thank you to our valued channel members. You guys make this possible. I appreciate it. Again, just supporting the channel through a subscription. Subscribing to the channel. That's good enough. But if you tell a friend, if you bring somebody with you, or if you choose to support in this way, just know that it means something extra special to us, and we appreciate you. The Georgia Bulldogs are going to have to fight for everything they get the rest of the way. There's just no two ways about it. This team is good enough to win the games that are left on their schedule and to win some games in the college football playoff. But before the season, I said, I don't think Georgia's going to win the national title. They can, but I wasn't expecting it. And as this thing has played out, it's looking like I was more right than I was wrong. But that's why we watch the games, and don't have any doubt. I'm go Dogs till the day I die, and I'm going to be watching every one of these games, and I'm going to be cheering as hard as I possibly can for them. Ride or die with my Georgia Bulldogs. But they're going to have to earn it the rest of the way. It's not one person, it's everybody. Everybody on that team has things they can do to get better and improve upon. And to that, I'll say, in Kirby, we trust. I trust him to get this team ready to go on Saturday for a big one against the Tennessee Volunteers, because make no mistake about it, it is all on the line when that Big Orange comes to town on Saturday. Take care of yourselves. Take care of your friends. Take care of your families. Take care of each other. And go Dogs! All right, everybody. I wanted to jump back in here and give you just a few minutes here. If y'all got any questions or anything, throw them in the chat for me. The chat has looked lively tonight. Man, I don't even know if I can name everybody that's in here, but thank you so much for hanging out with us. It looks like we've had a good group. 40 in here now. We've got a few minutes. If you have questions or anything that you want me to address, toss them in the chat here and we'll get to them. I'm just going to say thank you to everybody that's here. Josh, Carol, my guys, Herb and Raj, Tyler, Anthony. I know I'm going to miss people. Thank you all for being here with us. This is awesome. I love to see you guys get in here. I'm going to always go back and look at the comments and read the chat after the fact to see what you guys are talking about, to see if I helped you by answering your questions as we went along, but it's hard to keep up with it all, when we're doing the taping. So I'm hoping everybody's doing good this evening. We do have a little bit of time here for overtime. If anybody has any questions, I gotta say there was so much that happened this week with Georgia. There was the game, there was the breakdown of the game. Then there was everything that happened after the game. By the way, this is an aside. There are videos out there that you can find, still photos that you can find. I'm sure it happens every time fans rush the field. But I personally was shocked this week how many times I saw a still photo or a video of an Ole Miss fan, and as many times it was people my age, Gen Xers, right? Late 30s, 40s, in that window. As many times as it was somebody who looked like they were in college, there were people who looked a lot like me running up to individual Georgia Bulldog players. Most of them had a camera in their hands, trying to get them to react to something, trying to say whatever stupid thing they were going to say to somebody who was in the arena as they were trying to get off the field. And I thought to myself, it is a miracle that you don't have stories each and every week that somebody punched somebody on the field. I can remember when that happened at Boise State, when Oregon lost up there and the running back Blunt shoved that person or hit that person on the field. And I remember thinking, man, I can't believe he did that. And then I paused for a second and thought, no, I can understand how he did it. Did it excuse it? No, absolutely not. But I could see how it would happen, because you're a competitor in the arena and now you've got fans pouring onto the field and all they want to do is say something stupid to you because they feel entitled somehow. And I couldn't believe how much evidence there was this week of people doing that to Georgia players as they came off the field. It is a miracle, in my opinion, that you didn't have somebody do something stupid. Doesn't excuse it, but man, I cannot believe how many dumb people there are who run on the field and think that somehow they're right to get in the face of a player or a coach or a cheerleader or whoever it is and do stuff like that. It shows a lack of respect for the game, all that stuff. So, man, I tell you what, I don't understand it. That's just an aside, though. That's just an aside. The thing about Georgia, and I tried to hit on this week, there are two big takeaways for me. Like I said, I mentioned how you can tell how this game's going to go pretty early on. But there are two big takeaways for me, and that is that Georgia and Tennessee look, from a treetop perspective, they look very similar, which is going to give every Dog fan pause, because if Georgia doesn't play better than what they did this last Saturday, if they don't stop doing the direct things that they did to get themselves beat on Saturday, then they're going to lose again. Georgia will lose to Tennessee if they don't play better and they do not fix the things that are clearly on tape that have to be addressed and have to be changed. If they do not do it, they will lose to Tennessee. So I can't shake that feeling. Tennessee has a wonderful front seven that can get after the passer, and they are probably playing as well on the back end as any Tennessee team Georgia has faced under Kirby Smart. We addressed the fact that Georgia's wide receivers do not create space. They just don't have that in them this year unless Bobo schemes them open. So when you look at it that way, you can see how it would be a very long day for Georgia. So they better show up. They better stop the run and then control the game as much as possible. Because if they don't, Tennessee has every capability of making Georgia look exactly like Ole Miss made them look on Saturday. So that's the first thing. And the other thing is that this offense, they just are what they are. There were missed opportunities for big plays all over the field on Saturday. And Georgia could not take advantage. It's not that they didn't, it's that they couldn't. And it's because of the failures across the system that is the Georgia offense, primarily based on the offensive line. The offensive line is a problem. Based on what we've seen over the last couple of weeks, there is not an NFL level offensive tackle on the roster right now. That's stunning. Green could be a freshman All-American last year, and apparently he's injured and fighting through it. We don't know exactly what that is. So, I mean, weigh that however you want to. Kudos to him for trying to push through. But that's where the things, when Carson Beck's making the mistakes like he's making and not helping his offensive tackles by working inside the pocket the way he's supposed to, it makes Ernest Green look like complete garbage. And I don't believe he is that kind of player. I don't think he's as bad as Saturday made him look. Carson did him no favors. When Truss was out at tackle, not great. And in the run game, there was a point there where on more than one occasion, at least two that I saw, it wasn't so much that Truss got beat. It was a complete lack of effort, which led to him getting beat. Almost an Olay. If he just kind of gets in the way, Georgia has gains in the run game for 4, 5, 6 yards. But when you just don't give the effort and you Olay, you get a tackle for loss, which is what happened. The running backs have 0 shot. Carson Beck has 0 shot. So there are things that have to be fixed. You're like, well, why are these people playing? Brings you back to what I was talking about earlier. Whether it's by design or whether it's by need, out of need due to injury or something else that maybe we aren't privy to. There have been so many bodies that have played along that offensive line this year that cohesion and working as a unit, which is what you have to do when you do the zone blocking scheme that they employ in the run game, it can't exist. It doesn't exist. And so you see the kind of performances that we've seen. Now, again, if health is the issue here, maybe these guys can get a little bit more healthy. Maybe they can settle on a group, a 5 up front, stop the rotation and be like, you are going to play until you can't play anymore, and this is who we're going to go with. Maybe that's what has to happen. Because we have just seen across the line of scrimmage, everybody up there just be inconsistent and make mistakes, and it has cost this team time and time again. So they got to get it straight. And Kirby's going to have he's got some hard questions he's going to have to answer when we get to the end of the year. Because you don't know, and I don't know, all the details. That's fact. Carson Beck is the starting quarterback of the University of Georgia because he deserves to be. That's not going to change. Whoever wants to transfer in, out, whatever, do it. Whoever wants to commit or not, do it. But right now, Carson Beck's the quarterback at Georgia, and that's fine. He's completely good enough to win a national championship. But when you've got a system that has been as janky, out of rhythm, inconsistent, as this offense has been this year, and then people want to scream at Mike Bobo for throwing bubble screens. And trust me, I'm one of them. I'm there. I could go the rest of this year without seeing another one. A now pass because of a read at the line of scrimmage. So it looks like Bobo called it. Maybe he didn't. Maybe Carson called it. Whatever. I'm tired of seeing them. But when you can't drop back and give routes time to develop down the field, you got no choice but to do that. Zero choice. Especially when you're not running the football. Especially when you're running the football for 1.9 yards per carry, like they did against Ole Miss. You run out of bullets in the gun. There's only so many things you can do without just saying we're going to get this kid killed. It's just the reality. And folks don't like to hear that. Folks don't like to hear it. Georgia's got the best players. Georgia's recruiting class, this, that, and the other. Okay, fine. That's all true. Georgia loves the offensive line class that they signed last year. Loves them. They're not getting on the field right now. Why? Because you can't trust them. They're not ready. And the situation that Georgia's in right now along the offensive line, it's not great. It's not great. Not great at all. So, y'all get me ranting. See, I'm in a ranting mood. I was talking about Kirby not getting enough sleep this week and feeling a little on edge. That's where I'm at. There's no telling. I could take off on a tangent in a second, but I appreciate you guys listening. We're right up against 8 o'clock. I appreciate you hanging in here with me. Almost 60 folks in here right now. I don't know how many likes there are. 26 is what I see. Do me a favor. If I'm doing a halfway decent job, hit that thumbs up button. Give me a like. Consider subscribing. I would really appreciate it because all we do is talk Georgia football all the time, 365 days a year. Even when nobody else has something to talk about, we're going to have something to talk about. I promise you. We got a track record. So if you like the Dogs football, come on back. We'll talk about it all the time. Oh my gosh. That's it for this week, guys. Thanks for hanging out with me. Thank you for hitting that like button. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to be with you tonight. I appreciate it. I hope everybody enjoys the games this weekend. I hope that the Dogs come out of there with a victory. I think they can, but it is not going to be a blowout. I can't see that happening. I see it as a lower scoring game, and that defense is going to have to play great. The fans are going to have to impact Tennessee's offense, and the Dogs are going to have to play clean. Dogs are going to have to play clean. Oh, I see Armando. Thanks, man. There at the bottom. Thank you for subbing. I appreciate it, dude. And here, since you're new, I'll say this because there might be some other people here that are new. I do shows on Wednesdays and Thursdays, the live streams during the season. And then there's new videos that post every Friday. So that's going to show up because it's a recap of tonight's thing for the people who couldn't be here live. But there's more content that I produce, especially across all the socials. So if you're not familiar with those, I hope you'll give those a look too, because we will always provide you with as much content as we can possibly do. And it's just like, we're just like you, right? Got a family, got a job. So doing all we can do for you. And I promise you, you will always get my best effort. And I appreciate you taking a chance on me with a sub. Thank you so much. And for anybody else who chose to do that or chooses to do that going forward, thank you. I appreciate it. All right, guys, y'all take care of each other. Take care of yourselves, your friends, your families. And you know what I'm about to say. Go Dogs!